45 years in the future, we follow the story of Old Man Hawkeye, where Clint Barton is living in the wastelands of America and is going out on one last revenge mission before he loses his sight for good. Our story begins with Clint Barton going on a smuggling run for Jebediah Hammer, but as they are traveling through a ravine, they quickly find themselves in the middle of an ambush by none other than the Madrox gang. Now, Clint asks Jamie if this is any way to treat an old friend, and they respond that they no longer go by the name of the progenitor. This is how Clint finds out that they're transporting mutant growth hormone, so he goes to grab it out of the back of the truck, pull his trusty bow and arrow out, and reveal that he's not giving in that easy. And even as an old man, Clint's still a force to be reckoned with as he kills every single member of the Madrox gang. All of them, that is, except for one who just got hit in the shoulder, and Clint, out of arrows, realizes, fuck, missed. And if there's one thing Clint Barton doesn't do, it's miss a shot. Now, Clint was actually so surprised by the fact that he missed a shot, he went to the doctor to get checked, where he found out that he's losing his vision quickly, and he has months, if not just barely weeks, left to see. So the doctor tells him if there's something in this life that he wants to see, he better do it now. Figuring he's not going to need it anyway, Clint packs his old Xbox up and goes to take it to one of his buddies to give to his son. And since he's there anyway, maybe even ask that friend if he'll help him on a revenge mission, to which Logan quickly replies, hell no. Clint tells him he wants to see justice. It's 45 years overdue, and Logan tells him the only thing he's concerned with is his family. He tells Clint the Avengers, the X-Men, they're all dead, and nothing that they're going to do is going to bring them back, but his family, they're still alive, and he plans to keep it that way. So Clint storms off telling Logan to keep the Xbox anyway, that maybe his son could play it and see what a real hero looks like. Destined to take on this mission by himself, Clint goes back to Hammer Falls, where he tells his daughter Ashley this could be the last time that he sees her. After his daughter basically tells him to fuck off, he heads back outside where he has a flashback to the night that all of the heroes fell. And this reminder is all the motivation that Clint needs. And as if getting revenge on the villains that now run the country wasn't going to be a tough enough challenge for Clint, the one Jamie Madrox that survived is now bonded with a Venom symbiote. Back at the site where Clint had killed off the rest of the Madrox gang, we see the sheriffs puzzled as each one of these bodies has a hole already dug for them. They're ready to just chalk it up to gang-on-gang violence. The marshal shows up and tells them that obviously it's not the case. Realizing that nobody else could be this proficient with a weapon or considerate enough to even dig the graves for the bodies, the Marshal Bullseye realizes that this is the work of a bona fide superhero. Bullseye immediately begins his investigation, starting at the home of Jebediah Hammer, who was just simply going to enjoy his dinner with his family, only to walk into his dining room and find that Bullseye has killed his kids. He flashes his badge and tells him he wants the full lowdown on who killed the Madroxes, but Jebediah is understandably upset with Bullseye. He pulls a gun out on him, so in response Bullseye throws his card, quickly slitting his throat. Now as Hammer lies there bleeding out, Bullseye tells him to write what he needs to know in blood, or his wife's gonna die next. So using his finger and the blood from his neck, Jebediah writes down two words on the table: Hammer Falls, the home of none other than Clint Barton's family. Clint, looking to get information on the people on his hit list, he goes to one of the most popular bars in town looking to talk with the owner, the Orb. But as Clint walks in, the Orb sees who he really is and yells at his guards to get this man away from him. As security moves in to escort Clint out, they realize quickly that despite his age, Hawkeye is still a force to be reckoned with. And even though he has the occasional missed shot, Clint's able to focus and pull himself together and wipe out all the security in this bar. He goes to sit down with the Orb, who has a watcher's eye in his chest, by the way, and he sees Clint's past and why he's doing this. He sees the day that all of the heroes fell, with all of the bodies of them laying around Clint. He's on his knees crying. He begs the villains just to go ahead and kill him, and they said, no, it's fine. We've already killed all of the real heroes. The Orb is shocked and tells Barton he had no idea that's how it went down, and Clint tells him he doesn't want his pity, he's just here for information. Seeing what Clint is capable of and knowing his life's truly in danger, the Orb tells him of one regular he has come in here. He's an old Thunderbolt, he's the big one, and he can be found working at Arcade's Carnival. We see Bullseye hot on Clint's trail, interrogating his little girl. And while Ashley's tough as hell and isn't giving him shit but a hard time, Bullseye gets an alert of a bow and arrow attack just 12 miles away and says it turns out he doesn't need her help after all. And just a step behind Bullseye, we see Venom at the home of the recently widowed Miss Hammer, who's asking her where he can find the man with the bow and arrows. Staying just a few steps ahead, we see Clint arrive at his first destination, Arcade's Murder World. Clint is depressingly walking around Arcade's Carnival, where he sees that kids pay to dress up like villains and beat the shit out of people who are dressed as heroes. Clint then stops in and sees a fortune teller. She can tell Clint's on a particular mission, and she tells him it's not worth his time. It won't bring anybody back, and it won't bring him peace, and he says he's tired of waiting. He's done waiting for Reed and Sue to appear, or somebody to lift up the hammer and bring down the lightning. Waiting for his only living friend to wake up and start stabbing the bad guys. He's out of time, and this mission is the only thing he has left. So Clint sneaks his way into Atlas's changing room, who guesses that he's there to kill him, and Clint simply answers yes. Clint wants to know, after everything they'd been through, how could he do that to them? How could he have turned on him like that? Atlas just tells him that not everything's about him. He just wanted to live. The hero saw him as a master of evil. The bad guy saw him as a thunderbolt. He didn't get to cash in 30 pieces of silver. He's just barely out here living. He tells Clint, hell, Abe is working 18 hours a day in a Doombot factory and spends the other 6 hours drinking to forget. But if it fights what he wants, then it's exactly what he's gonna get, as Atlas grows to the size of a giant and Clint barely jumps out of the way before he gets stomped. Atlas pins him down and he barely is able to make an escape. As Clint climbs to the top of a roller coaster, he tells him that after what they did to him, he's almost rooting for Clint. Now that he's gained a height advantage, Clint hits Eric in the face with a tear gas arrow, sending the giant tumbling to the ground. Clint stands on his chest, drawing back one final arrow as he hesitates for a moment, thinking of him and Atlas's teammates. But as the moment passed, he fires the arrow through his eye and into his brain. With a tear in his eye, Clint walks away knowing that the first part of his mission is done. Now, while Clint is clearly obsessed with his mission, Bullseye is too, as he is dying to finally kill another superhero. He's so committed that even when his boss, the Red Skull, is trying to get a hold of him, he simply hangs up and leaves, and gets back to his work of torturing Orb for information, which of course leads him to finding the carcass of Atlas and realizing what Hawkeye's mission is. So Bullseye looks up a complete roster of the old Thunderbolts. Even though I don't think he realized what he was doing, Atlas actually gave Clint the information for where to find Abe Jenkins. We see him miserably working day after day in a Doombot factory, coming back and drinking every night, crying himself to sleep, and writing letters to his beloved Melissa, better known as his Thunderbolts teammate Songbird. Until finally one day at work, he hears a familiar voice tell him, shifts over and he has a debt that's come due. But unbeknownst to Clint, he's currently in the crosshairs of Bullseye, who is caught up with him. Only when he goes to pull the trigger, his gun is cut in half. He's attacked by the Kravinoff family. They're not much of a match for Bullseye, as he pretty quickly kills all of them, but he does end up with a pretty bad gash in his side, and realizing he'll have no choice but to tend to it, says to himself that Barton gets to live another day. As Clint is waiting on Abe to show up and they have their big final dramatic fight, he's thinking back to the night where all the heroes died. And what makes these memories burn even worse is Natasha had asked him if he really thought that they could trust the Thunderbolts. And he assured her that they're reformed, they're his team now, and he would trust those guys with his life. Abe finally shows up in his Beetle outfit and tells Hawkeye that he needs help adjusting his suit before they get started. And as Clint's asking him why he did it, he told him simply, I did it for love. He tells Clint when the Red Skull came knocking, he would have tore the world down to keep Melissa safe, and Clint tells him that's exactly what you did. He understands, he had somebody that he loved that much, and that's why he's gonna kill every last one of them. The two fight and shoot and fly around each other. Clint keeps taking shots that keep missing, until finally he has to use another trick arrow to tie up the Beetle's wings, give him a chance to jump on his back, stab him through the neck, and send him crashing into the ground. Seeing his old friend lay there dead, Clint softly closes his eyes and says, damn it, Abe, I did this for love too, as he sees a letter sticking out of his jacket, which of course was addressed to Melissa, telling her that if she's reading this, that he's dead, and he wanted her to know that he carried her in his heart until the day he died. Now, while all this was taking place, the multiple man Venoms have been slowly tracking Hawkeye this entire time. Clint's trying to get a drink and blow off steam after his big fight at Turk's bar. The Venoms finally catch up with him. As they're battling it out, he realizes that after all these years, the symbiotes are still afraid of fire, while he's using that to an advantage and keep them at bay long enough for one of them to get close to Turk, where he grabs a hold of him and rips him in half right in front of his nephew. With Turk dead, Clint's shoulders all but destroyed, and he's pinned down by Venom, it seems like all hope is lost. Until Turk's nephew, Dwight, comes crashing back into the bar in Clint's car, picking up the Venoms and giving them a real chance at escaping. Clint tells Dwight of a sanctuary nearby, but he knows that she's not going to be happy to see him when they get there. And as they're racing away as fast as they can from this army of Venoms chasing them down, they finally arrive at their safe haven. Their leader, Kate Bishop, is informed that Clint Barton has arrived, and he's brought a whole lot of hell with him. While Hawkeye's in Kate Bishop's care, we see the Skull trying to figure out how he's going to deal with Bullseye's insubordination, and hearing some concerning news that there's an Avenger running around. Bullseye had went to a doctor to get stitched up, and also try and figure out how he can get his Deathlock implant removed so that the Skull can have no control over him. The doctor tells him that she can't help him at all, it'll take some neural remapping to be able to do that. Their visit is cut short as the Skull has sent a crew of men in to kill Bullseye, which of course did not turn out so well for them. Now, he tells Taskmaster to give the Skull a message for him. He says he will kill every man or woman he sends after him before he moves on to killing every man and woman who didn't, or he'll be in Rock Springs in 3 days, and the Skull can send his big gun then. Now, we see Clint dreaming once again of Natasha, as he's awoken by Kate Bishop, who is screaming aggressively at his bedside. The doctor's telling Kate that Clint needs some time to heal up, that he needs rest, and she says rest. Just when he's murdered by the army of Venoms outside, or by me for bringing him to my fucking doorstep. Now, the Hawkeyes head down into the streets and try and protect the people from the Venoms, using fire arrows as much as they can. And Clint hears Kate casually mention that this part of the country is infested with T-Rexes from the Savage Lands. Gives Clint an idea. See, I mean, he's the one that the Venoms want to kill anyway, so him and Kate load up in his car and drive back out of the city as the army of Venom starts chasing behind. But the problem is, they're too divided like this. The symbiote needs to make itself whole again, or they're never going to catch up with the car. And closer back to full power, they're able to catch up with the car and start attacking the Hawkeyes. Thankfully, Clint's plan worked. See, all the commotion they were causing attracted the attention of a giant T-Rex who picked Venom up and ate him. Kate is tearing Clint a new asshole, and all he is doing is begging her for help in his mission. He says, if you're not going to do it for me, do it for Sam, Wanda, Natasha. Get back in the car and I'll tell you everything. So they sent down and Clint tells Kate about that dreaded night 45 years ago. All the Avengers and Thunderbolts are loaded up, heading out to some huge emergency in Las Vegas. All of a sudden, their plane is ripped apart by Magneto. Rhodey catches Clint from their freefall and tells him that everybody's safe. The Flyers and the Scarlet Witch made sure everyone got to the ground. As they land, Rhodey's arc reactor overloads and literally fries him inside the suit. The final battle commences. Then, with tears in his eyes, Magneto kills his own daughter. Pietro's so stunned from this, he doesn't even realize Sandman creeping up from behind him and breaking his legs. Now, the Absorbing Man starts to take Wanda's powers, as Magneto allows him to pair it with his powers of magnetism. And with all that extra juice, Crusher Creel kills Thor, and the hammer falls. What's left of the Avengers and Thunderbolts try to rally behind Clint, as Songbird and Beetle fry Sam out of the air. And Morgan Le Fay uses the ebony blade to cut Tigra's head off. Thanks to Morgan's tampering, Atlas was able to pick the blade up and kill Dane Whitman with it. Now, Natasha's pleading with Clint, telling him they need to fall back and regroup, get a different plan. All of a sudden, she's stabbed in the back by Citizen V, who reveals that for weeks now, really, he's been Baron Zemo. He's got all this information on the Avengers, and this was his payback for Clint stealing his Thunderbolts team. Clint tells Kate before he goes blind, he's putting an arrow through Zemo's throat. But thanks to a tip from the Red Skull, they have no idea that Zemo was watching them from a drone nearby. As Kate has joined Clint in his journey, it's interesting to see the dynamic between the two, as she realizes that her own personal hero has fallen very far. Words got out about him. The guy he was supposed to trade with put a bounty on his head. Hawkeyes, of course, have to fight their way out of the bar at this point. Managed to beat everyone, and so Clint is just going to steal the gas that he was going to trade for off this guy. But Kate tells him no. She gives the guy her mother's necklace. She trades for it because heroes don't steal. And while Clint and Kate are traveling to the next person on his personal hit list, we see Bullseye waiting in Rock Springs, where the Red Skull has sent in his big gun, a Deathlock mind-controlled Winter Soldier. Using his implant, Bullseye is able to locate some weaknesses in Bucky's cybernetics. Battle keeps raging on up to the point that Bullseye finds Namor's trident and runs it through Bucky's face. But still yet, the Winter Soldier keeps coming. Now, Bullseye says that he's a stubborn one, but there's none more stubborn than he is, as he kicks Bucky back into this electrical field, essentially frying him and killing him, and with his last words, Bucky Barnes just looks at him and says thank you. Bullseye finds the team they had on location who was controlling the Winter Soldier, and he tosses Bucky's head in there with him and says that he's needing a little bit of brain surgery, as he's going to get them to remove the Deathlock implant, at least the part that the Red Skull controls. As Bullseye successfully finished his fight, Clint shows up at the sanctuary of the Silent Sisterhood, where he's looking for his next target. He goes in and finds Melissa holding a sign saying I'm sorry, with tears running down her face. She tells Clint that she knows what he did to Abe, and she doesn't blame him, that neither one of them deserved a happy ending. She tells Clint about her vow of silence and how finally, after all of these years, God brought him back into her life so that she could redeem herself. Now, Clint's telling her he doesn't believe in that religious bull, but a voice cuts him off and says, you should get spiritual real quick, Mr. Barton, because I'm about to send you straight to hell, as Bullseye has finally caught his prey. The two begin battling, and Clint is fighting for his life. The two of the most precise men to ever live are blocking, dodging, and barely missing each other's blows. Bullseye's so happy he's the challenge that he'd hoped he'd be. He tells Clint he better pray for a miracle. But Bullseye's devastated when his implant picks up on the fact that Clint has glaucoma. He's flawed. He's been hunting a wounded animal. And this temporary distraction was long enough for Songbird to go suit up and come back into the church, where she blows Bullseye out of the building. Now, Melissa rushes outside with Clint and gives him a map to find Moonstone. But before he goes, Melissa says how happy she is that God gave her this opportunity to redeem herself, to save Clint. With tears in her eyes, she said she finally has the chance to feel alive again, when all of a sudden, Bullseye throws a scythe through her back. Kate quickly raises up and hits Bullseye with a gas arrow. They immediately try to run from Bullseye, but he's hot on their tail on his motorcycle. And as he catches up to him, Kate quickly pulls the e-brake, sideswiping him and sending him flying. And as they ride off, Clint fires the last of their explosive-tipped arrows into the gas tank, making sure Bullseye's not following. And now that there's two Hawkeyes, Bullseye thinks to himself that this murder might actually be worthy of his time. Now, reports of this action with Bullseye has made it back to Taskmaster and his crew, but instead of sending somebody there, they're going to send a crew to where they're going, a Weapon X facility that houses Avalanche and Baron Zemo. With Melissa's dying gift in hand, Clint and Kate head up to the Canadian border where they have to get out and start hoofing it. This leads to them getting attacked by an old sentinel, which thankfully Kate's still a good enough shot to hit through the eye and destroy. All of this commotion attracts the attention of this really weird cult who follows none other than ex-Thunderbolt and Clint's old lover, Moonstone. It turns out Zemo had been sending the Sentinels after her to kill her, but in her mind she can now kill these heroes and fall back into the Red Skull's good graces. Once she starts vaporizing everybody in town, body starts failing on her. Now Clint's able to distract her long enough for Kate to get a good shot on her, Clint to close in, stabbing her straight through the Moonstone in her chest, causing her and her worshippers to explode. Kate had the brilliant idea of going through the Sentinels' black boxes to trace back the coordinates of where they originated from. Obviously, this is where Baron Zemo's hideout will be. And it turns out that hideout is the decommissioned Weapon X facility, where Zemo's lab full of people finally perfected a super soldier serum. They track the signal and Clint and Kate finally make their way up to it. And despite Kate yelling at him, Clint's big dumbass walks straight in through an open garage door to which Kate clearly said was a trap, and the door shut behind him, successfully separating the two and leaving Kate to have to sneak in through a sewer. The guards of this place aren't trying to stop Clint, they just let him walk right down the hallway, to which they lead him straight to the new super soldier. Clint is trying his damnedest and using some of his trick arrows, which all prove to be nothing for this new super soldier. But right as Clint's about to get killed, he's being choked to death. Kate had actually turned the power off in the building, and a scientist sneaks a syringe into Clint's hand. He sticks it into the neck of the soldier and injects it, and this overdose of super soldier serum actually makes his fucking head explode. But now that Kate is caught up with Clint and they have the scientist that helped him escape, things go from bad to worse when Bullseye has finally caught up with them. Now Kate tells Clint whatever project that the Skull had going on here is completed and that all these scientists are in danger because they're going to kill them so that no one can replicate it. They need to get all of them to safety, and Clint just simply tells her no, that that's not why he's here. He's here for revenge and he's not here to save anyone. So Kate is left having to save everybody by herself, and she tells Clint that she cannot believe that he keeps disappointing her even more. Killing the guards in front of the door, Clint's finally face to face with Zemo, right where he wants to be. He pulls his arrow back and stands there looking at him. He tells Zemo of how he's dreamed of doing this all of these years and tells him to stand up and face him like a man. But it turns out Zemo's not capable of doing that at all, as he wheels himself out in front of Clint. He tells Clint he doesn't deserve to see him like this, and Clint falls to the floor in desperation, saying this isn't how he wanted this moment to go. Zemo's typing it out, saying that he doesn't get to pity him, that he's the greatest scientist of the Third Reich, and Clint just says, I don't need your resume, man. All these years he dreamed of revenge, and it seems that time has already beat him to it. He taunts him and tell him he's kept an eye on him this whole time and watched him as a failure, as a father, as a husband, as a hero. He tells Clint he doesn't get to walk out of here looking down on him, and Clint says this isn't how I see you. Clint goes to walk out of the room and abandon his revenge mission. We see how he really sees Zemo. Heading back to find Kate and the scientist, Clint can't believe how disappointed in himself he is. He let his mission for revenge drive him so far away from the person that he used to be. He apologizes Kate for putting her in danger in the first place, and promises that they're going to get all of these people out of here to safety. But as they're making their escape, he's decked by Avalanche. Clint's severely outgunned in this fight. He swings and misses on Avalanche, and he grabs Clint's head and starts to vibrate it, successfully detaching his optic nerves and blinding Clint Barton for good. Kate's pinned down at the moment and can't come to help Clint out, but he's not going down without a fight. Avalanche is screaming loud as hell, and Clint's hearing aids work great. He takes an arrow and runs it through Avalanche's foot, and jams an arrow through his mouth and out the back of his throat. Now, Avalanche is in shock and can't believe that he actually let Clint Barton kill him. But he tells them that everybody's going with him as he grabs the ground and starts shaking it. The entire building starts collapsing around them. Now, Kate has got to Clint, and he starts apologizing again for putting her in this mess in the first place. She tells him to save it. If she's going to get all these civilians to safety, she's going to need the second best archer to ever pull a drawstring. She tells Clint to get up off his ass and remind these bad guys who the fuck they are. Standing back to back, the two of them pull their bows out and start picking off all of these armed guards. And while Kate's accuracy is fine, she's calling out all of the shots for Clint to follow along, and he's still managing to hit people. With all the guards now dead, they go to make their escape, only to be separated by a bunch of falling rubble. They see the exit up ahead, and Kate tells the scientists to hurry up, that they're gonna make it, that they're gonna live through this, but as soon as they step outside, they're hit in the throat by a couple of guards, as Bullseye had been standing out there patiently waiting. Kate starts fighting Bullseye immediately, and kicking his ass, telling him she's so sick of people like him. Even though she's standing there going toe-to-toe, and is getting the best of him, eventually she accidentally punches Bullseye in his Deathlock implant, jamming up her wrist and giving him the upper hand. Now, Hawkeye and the other scientists have finally made it out of the building when he hears Bullseye and Kate struggling. He tells the scientist to take the super soldier serum with him and run away as fast as he can. As Clint draws his bow back to approach Bullseye, he says he's going to see this through to the end. But Clint's wandering around with his bow and not even facing in the correct direction, and Bullseye says, honestly, you're kind of ruining this for me. The last of the Avengers, and he's a big fucking disappointment, and Kate reminds him that he's not the last Avenger. As she grabs an arrow with a sound locator on it and stabs Bullseye, breaking away, and yells at Clint to aim 3 inches to the left of the sound. And he follows Kate's orders. He turns around and fires his arrow as Bullseye throws one final card towards Clint, whose arrow goes ripping through it and hits Bullseye directly in the eye as he falls over and with his dying breath says glorious. Kate tells Clint that was 1,000,001 shot to hit him through his eye, and he says, yeah, well, I was aiming for his heart. And the rest of the Weapon X bunker collapses behind them. Taskmaster informs the Skull there's nothing left of this place. There's no way anyone could have survived this. There's no serum, there's no scientist, nothing. And as Kate's driving him home, Clint's saying if they could just find that case, they could have a chance to take the Skull down for good. But with tears running down her face, Kate tells him, I'm done with this, Clint. I'm done burying people I care about. Dropping Clint off at Logan's house, she says maybe your other friend will help you with your next revenge mission.